All right, excited to get started with our live session here. Just moved to a new home, so we've had some new updates on our technical structure here, and had some guys actually power washing our home that disconnected some things with our Xfinity. So well, everything's coming through from an audio standpoint. Did all of our pre-checks and should be good. So excited to be participating in my first AO mentor session. Awesome organization and great time getting to know Sean. And it was a big event that just happened and came through with everybody getting together. So hopefully there was a lot of value generated there for everyone. So my name is Brad Stevens. Excited to be a new mentor added to the group here. And just brief background on myself, and hopefully get to know all of you a lot better as we move forward. But I'm actually from Atlanta, Georgia. I've been a lifetime entrepreneur. Grew up around the Atlanta area and kind of grew up in a bit of an entrepreneurial type of family. So there's always like a whiteboard permanently hanging from the fireplace in our home with ideas flying around. And after I went to college, came out, and the company I was going to work for ended up going under. So ended up starting my entrepreneurial career earlier than I thought. And so that's all I've done for the last 20 years. And I'm 40 now, and had a chance to start and build a lot of companies in different industries. So hopefully able to give you a lot of diversity of perspective and experiences. I've had business partners, not had business partners in different businesses, service-based businesses, product-based businesses. And currently, my company is called Outsource Access. And so we actually provide fully vetted and trained managed virtual assistant services out of the Philippines. And so I got a chance, and maybe hear some of that journey in the past, but long story short, I learned how to do outsourcing and growing my last business. We had manufactured and distributed teeth whitening products all over the world, and learned how to do outsourcing to help save that business during a crisis with a product disaster we had. We had about 10,000 units go out that were defective. And so I took that knowledge and translated it into the business I'm in today. So Outsource Access, we have about 130 and growing 2025 per month, providing vetted and trained VAs for business owners and entrepreneurs all over the world. A lot in the U.S. and Canada, but also internationally. So get a chance to interface with a lot of different businesses and a lot of different industries and backgrounds. And I do a lot of speaking. I've spoken for about 60, 70 plus organizations globally on this topic, and helping to bring the world of outsourcing and VAs and how impactful it can be in scaling and growing a business. Relative to how most have perceived it. A lot of people read Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week 10 years ago, but that's kind of still where it is as it relates to outsourcing and VAs. And so some of the questions that have come up here have asked in relative to that. So I'm happy to share my experience. I've lived it and breathed it, experienced it from every different perspective, and even building our own operation and growing it to over 100 people in just 12 months. So excited to be participating. So I'll jump into the first question here from Gabriel Suarez. And I'll read the question out and give experience share. I'll kind of also share some advice and guidance if I was in your shoes, but also just hopefully pull from some experiences that I've had that may speak to your situation. So the question is, I want to buy out a minority partner at one of the stores. We are bumping heads too much, and the 20% he owns of one store is the only thing tying him to me and the company. To cut him loose, I need to buy him out. What are some things I should look at when I negotiate this? And what are some things I can do to minimize my expense and protect myself from a legal perspective? So I was actually just having this conversation back when we could still travel with a good friend of mine that's in a business with a partner and navigating some things. And as far as just the key questions to talk about, and I navigated this with my prior company. I had a business partner and for a number of years and went well, and had a little bit of a falling out, and some things got a little bit rough. So I personally had firsthand experience on this topic as well. But the first thing I'd look at is are there any major events coming up that could impact the valuation to or against your favor? So as you're kind of pondering this, I was talking to this individual I was talking about before, right before all the COVID situation hit, and they're in the medical supply business. And he really wished he had made this move with that partner prior to that, because now they've seen a major spike in the value of the businesses that's kind of impacted it. So if it's something that you're wanting to move forward with, I would take a look at what's the horizon look like. I don't know the background of the exact store or industry, but obviously COVID's had a big impact on every industry. But is there anything significant coming up that could impact that valuation to or against your favor that should have you accelerate this effort or pause this effort when it comes to valuing for you to get the best opportunity in the deal? As far as dealing with behavior, and myself in my last business, my partner and I were quite a big difference in age gap and different personalities. Is just take a moment to really be a student. I don't know how long the two of you have been partners, but just an opportunity to really be a student of his behavior. Because ultimately, in all the negotiation books that's out there, it's about what do they really want the most, right? What do they care most about? What is their personal situation, their family dynamics? Is it cash? Is it power? Is it control? Some people just will, out of spite, pause things or ask for more. Is just take a moment, and I don't know if you've done DISC profiles or maybe your partner's done DISC profiles or any personality assessments, but really take a moment to learn about that behavior profile, so you kind of know at a deeper level who you're engaging with. And maybe you've known this person for quite a long time, but it's a moment to really pause. And when I was dealing with this with my business partner, as I literally, for me, I like to get stuff on paper. And I just made a whole list of things that I know that he cared about, that he wanted, things that he didn't care about. And it just helped me kind of get that person's whole situation in front of me. So thinking about that heading into it. And then also, one thing is you mentioned you're bumping heads, right? Is depending on what you're bumping heads about and trying to take sort of the hat in hand, more humble approach versus the power play is how can you sort of make it look like it's sort of your fault, right? As far as what some of those challenges are in terms of just easing and diffusing the personality. And again, I don't know if it's hostile or how it may be, but I tried to come in at that approach when I was parting ways with my partner and one actually prior to that, is how can I bring to the table of, look, this is kind of where things have headed. I feel like this is part my fault in the causing some of this, and maybe it makes sense for us to part, look at it transitioning. So I found that by setting that stage personality-wise with that individual, helped give me a better negotiating strength going into it because he kind of felt that I was saying it was part of my challenge of heading into it, and it just kind of sets the stage with it. Also, what does this person have in terms of leveraging their institutional knowledge in the business? What is it that you're saying that that's the only thing tying them to you in the company? So are they handling the books? Are they handling the finances? Are they handling anything specific that they could leverage that's a value to you from an earn-out standpoint? But it sounds like that's the only thing. There's nothing there. It's just his ownership. Then maybe that's not an issue. The other thing in terms is valuing the business, and again, doing a lot of pre-homework on this before you head into bringing this up or having this conversation. Is I realized this, and when I was going to exit our business, is there's a lot of different perspectives I got on the valuation. So get a couple of different perspectives on valuing it, so that you can kind of come in fully knowledgeable around that. Because sometimes people have irrational ideas of what they think the value is when you want to go buy them out. But have a couple of different reference points. And some of those you have to pay for, but it's worth getting at least a high-level valuation. And I'd say another great resource on those are business brokers, because part of their cost sometimes is actually doing the valuation if you're willing to kind of engage with them. And so sometimes you can get some initial consultations with them, and you may want to leverage them as part of that journey. But they're a great resource to talk to of other people that are in your industry to get an idea of the valuation. So again, when you're painting the picture of that buyout, you can kind of have that research done ahead of time. The other thing I would recommend is and from my experience as well, was getting an attorney involved to look at where are there any loose ends that I may have blind spots about. And I'll tell you, I use the difference between an attorney and an arbitrator when I was dealing with from a negotiation standpoint is having an attorney look at all the legal, look at the contracts, where is there any exposures where this person's concerned. I mean, there was one person I was talking to, another friend of mine related to this, and the partner he wanted to buy out had been running a lot of personal things through the business in the past, putting a lot of personal expenses and so forth, and he was really concerned that if they get audited down the road, that's going to be an exposure point, right? So really take a look at, is there anything behavior-wise, and maybe you're doing that as well. I mean, I know everybody tends to kind of navigate that sort of gray area of how you classify on the business expense side, but take a look at that and see, is there any exposure there? And that can also be a leverage and negotiation point for you also when you're looking at, if you get somebody to value the business and say, hey, it's X dollar amount, right? But you look at what are ways that could bring that value down if there's some exposure points that you're saying, hey, these are things I'm going to have to take on, if we ultimately do the buyout. And then I'd recommend, if you haven't ever worked kind of an arbitrator versus an attorney, is depending on how negotiations are going between the two of you, one thing that we kind of engaged, we ultimately didn't have to pull the trigger, but I was about to, was getting an arbitrator. There's just a third party versus an attorney that can kind of just help navigate the conversation, having another person that can be there to have a dialogue with around this negotiation, because both of you kind of have your own camps, and even if you have spouses, right? We've had those arguments on the home front. It's kind of helpful if you have a third party there that can be another voice of reason. So recommend that as far as a strategy from an arbitration standpoint. So I think that kind of covers, at least on that question, just hopefully maybe some things to think about, haven't thought about from a different perspective. And obviously leaning on this group and others that have gone through these experiences and asking for additional experience shares. All right, the next question is from Allison Koyanagi. Hopefully I said that correctly. So Allison, thanks for sending in. Strategy marketing. So I'll read her question. I have 2 pending possible clients, one that could possibly be the largest deal my agency has ever had. It's taken about 2 weeks for one that is still going through some things with the business and says they will sign the agreement once it all settles. And the other I've been working for a week now and even closed a bulk order for him on his products, even though we aren't even officially working together yet. I know they're both eventually going to partner with my agency, but my question is, how do I create a sense of urgency without sounding pushy? I don't want them to say no to my services just because I asked them again what they thought of the proposal and if they had any questions. Thank you for your time. So certainly I've been in this situation myself with all our businesses. At the end of the day, right, we want to close the deals and bring them home. So one of the strategies, and it can be a very, very real one for you as well. I know it's been for me. I was dealing with this issue with a big opportunity that was looking to hire a bunch of VAs from us, a kind of a large franchise group. Is sharing that your team has a lot of incoming business that you're kind of navigating. And again, I'll just sort of role play here. If I was in your role, is that let's say John is the person you're talking to, is that as far as our agency goes, right, we're getting on the other side of COVID. Funds are kind of freeing up for a lot of clients. We had a lot of sort of incoming business that's coming our way, and I know you're still kind of evaluating the proposal. But on our end, we're really just having to manage our resource structure because we're having to allocate resources to some new clients that are coming in, and we definitely want to allocate big opportunity to work with you. But it would be very helpful if we could kind of see where you're heading so we can make those allocations and reserve those resources. And even mention maybe as well, and possibly this is the case, is that you've got a new hire that you're looking to bring on that's really going to be helping a part of those accounts. And they're right on the edge of kind of bringing them on, but want to kind of pause and find out where the client is in making a decision before you bring them on. So it's ways of you can just share. And this can be very valid and for all of our businesses. You're having to make resource planning, especially with agencies. You've got resources that are being allocated to other clients. It's just share that you're having to make some planning ahead and got some real great talent on the edge and need to kind of know where things are going. The other thing, if you're in a place of doing it, and we've done this, is asking offering a discount for either a cash opportunity. I don't know how you are funding or how the invoice structure is, if it's a monthly pay, if it's a monthly retainer, or if you're asking for a certain amount up front. But if you've got the opportunity, and we did this actually end of last year, heading into this year, and I was amazed at how many people took advantage of it. As we said, anybody that's willing to pay for an entire year of a virtual assistant up front, we're going to give a 20% discount. And we actually used it as a play end of last year for them to deduct their expenses from a tax strategy standpoint for those that have done well. So another opportunity is to come back to them if you're wanting to move the needle and maybe they're looking at some other opportunities. And I don't know what their financial situation is, but giving an opportunity that, hey, if you're willing to move on ahead with us and commit and even pay full amounts up front, we can give you a certain percentage discount as well. So those are 2 strategies, aside from sounding pushy and just the constant reminders of, hey, where are we? Hey, where are we? And they can respect that from a business standpoint, is that you've got to do resource planning as well, just like they do. And maybe you could speak to that so that, hey, we're both in a planning situation and help me if we could know where we are. And then couple that with, or independent of doing a discount from a cash standpoint. So Allison had another question. She said, do you have any resources or any advice on how to sell my services at a higher fee than what I sell it for now? I want to be able to convince potential clients that they will receive value for the investment they make with me, but I'm having trouble with feeling confident enough to price my services higher. So definitely have a couple different shares related to that question. One, and this is something that I find that, and this is the case with you at all, but I know with a lot of marketing agencies and firms, is that as far as giving very clear ROI on the initiative and asking that customer what the average value of a customer is to them. And I've seen this work a lot of times in the past, is instead of generalities, I hit it right up front, because a lot of people have perceptions about marketing agencies. I'm going to pay this monthly retainer, and what am I going to get? And well, it'll take 6 months before we get traction or see the results. What's the average value of a customer to you? And asking clients, and it's amazing, they respect a good question like that, and a lot of them can't even answer it. So what's the average value? Well, $20,000, $25,000 a year. Well, what's your gross margin? Around 30, 40%. Okay, so your gross profit tends to be X, and this is what we're looking to charge, and this is what we're looking to accomplish. So if we just get you one additional customer, right, we could pay for ourselves for 6 months. Right, and obviously the math varies on that depending on what you're charging and what their value of a customer is. But when I've reduced it down to that and hit that right up front versus giving them all the decks and all the great things and all the branding and all the strategy and all the different tactics, they appreciate that you respect their dollars and what it's going to take for them to for you to pay for yourself. So I found that that's helpful. I was in an organization where we have strategic alliance partners that help fund the organization, and we're asking them to pay $15,000 to $20,000 a year to be a strategic partner or basically a sponsor. And in the past, it was a kind of just begging and asking for the money, and to, would you be willing to sponsor our organization, and we'll put your logo here, and give you all these different opportunities to meet with our organization and members. And when I took on that board role for strategic partners for the organization, I kind of flipped the script. And a lot of it is flipping the tone. So brought them in, and instead of me asking and for us to ask for their money, I flipped it and said, tell us why you think you would be a good fit for our organization, because we're very selective about who we work with, and we would share what we're about, what our organization is, and flip it. And actually at the end of the luncheon, we'd have a luncheon where we kind of do the song and dance and share the whole organization. And I would end it by making each of them go around and share, why do you think you would be a good fit for our organization? And it flipped the entire perspective. And we set close to record high numbers that we raised in funds just in a 60-day period relative to what had been done in entire prior years. So a lot of it just having the confidence and the tone of how you go about presenting. And if you've got the client list and you've got the performance and ROI, because again, from a marketing agency standpoint, I get a chance to speak on this and talk to a lot of companies related to it. Is the challenge is what is the ROI that people can expect? And when you have that conversation right up front that you care about their dollars, and then if you have case studies and specific examples that you can share with it, and then flip the tone that you only take a certain number of clients, and why do they think they could be a good fit for your organization? I know that sounds bold, but it changes the tone. And if you look at a lot of the best absolute salespeople and sales organizations, right, they tend to have that level, not arrogance, but confidence about their capabilities and what they do. All right, so I'll get to another question submitted by Edward Morgan. And he asked a question, I only have a basic understanding of blockchain, so I would like to know how it could best be implemented to improve the operations of a Shopify-based e-commerce business like the two that I run. My business is New Zealand-based with a largely domestic customer base, and my supplies come from China and Belgium. I run B2B and B2C business models, and I'm essentially a middleman. Thanks. So, Edward, I'll have to share, in terms of deep blockchain knowledge, I don't have. I've read a number of articles on it and have some colleagues that are kind of engaged in that subject matter. But I tell you, when I'm in a situation where there's a new technology or a new opportunity, and obviously in the whole outsourcing VA world, is immediately kind of outsource the heavy lifting around that to an external resource for me to evaluate the content. So I've done this a lot in the past. If there's a new industry that I'm looking to go into, is I'll engage an outsourced resource on Upwork or Fiverr. And within our company, we have we have virtual assistants, but then we have over 200 specialized resources that support those virtual assistants who work with our clients. So if they need a one-off project or something done that's outside that virtual assistant's core skill set, they can lean on that tactical resource. And one of those is data scraping and data mining and research. So if you haven't engaged, and you probably have as far as the platforms like Fiverr and Upwork, you would be amazed at the competency and the knowledge that's on those platforms. I mean, with over 20 million people. So if you were to post, and first of all, just to ask this exact question, kind of crowdsource the knowledge. We had a time when we wanted to get kind of a market assessment of the chromatography industry back when we were doing some marketing work for a client. I had no idea about chromatography. It's a special process that's used in chemistry and separating components. But we posted it out, and we needed somebody that could write blogs and content on it, and we needed to get an assessment of that whole industry. So we posted it, and it was either Fiverr or Upwork One, and found somebody. I mean, it was a PhD in Pakistan that actually wrote incredible, perfect English blogs on chromatography. And then we had another resource that we found that I think it was less than $100. They did an entire market analysis and a whole report that they provided to us. So, so it's interesting what's out there, crowdsourcing knowledge. I'll share another example of how I use this. A number of years ago, we were looking at getting into the marketing space for the pet industry, is trying and provide some marketing related services for any marketing for veterinarians, anybody in the pet space. And so I want to see, what did that whole market look like? I want to know, who are the marketing companies that are supporting and providing services to the pet industry? What's their branding? What's their price points? So I did a screencast recording. I use a tool called screencast-o-matic.com, and there's another one called Loom. It's useloom.com. It's the number one tool that I use for communication. But it allows you to quickly record your screen, your voice, and your mouse. If nothing else from this call, if you all go check that out and download it, I use it for everything, and so does our whole organization. But you just click a little button, lets you record your screen, your voice, and your mouse, and you can explain something that you're wanting done. So I did that. I pulled up an Excel spreadsheet, and I put the columns on the top of it, and then I shared, hey, I want you to go and search the web, and I want you to go search these key phrases and find every single marketing firm you can out there that provides services for the pet industry. And I want you to go to this spreadsheet, and I want you to go and put the website of every single one that you find. And I want you to go on their website, and if they say that if they have the pricing if they have the pricing on there, put the pricing in this column, right? Then the other thing that I did is I said, if they have a downloadable brochure off of their website, I want you to also download their brochure, right? And if they ask for an email, just put in a bogus email so that you can get it. And I want you to take all those brochures and zip them up and put them into a zip file for me, right? And in 2 days, and for $17 later, I got over 150 companies aggregated and put into a spreadsheet with all of the names of the websites, their price points, and sent me a zip file. And I think it was around half of them that he put all their brochures. So what did that do for me? I could instantly print off all those brochures, put them on a conference table, right? And in 2 days, and for less than $20, I had an entire competitor market intelligence, right? So going back to just sharing, it's amazing how many niche subject matter that's out there. Is I would post this and kind of crowdsource knowledge and see what you come back with. You'd be amazed at the content that you could get related to blockchain, and specifically from implementation on the e-commerce side. So that's how I would approach it, not having a lot of deep institutional knowledge myself on blockchain. All right. So next question here is from Francesca Nicasio. Hopefully I'm saying the names correctly here. At crediblecopywriting.net. All right. Hi, AOT. My question is about maintaining and increasing profit margins when hiring/outsourcing. I typically charge $500 per article, and if I were to outsource doing this and wanted to get your take on what levers to tinker with, should I, A, raise my rates, even if my prices are a bit on the high end already, try to find people who can do the work at lower cost, or make up for lower profits by increasing sales volume and landing more projects? What do you suggest I prioritize? Or is there another thing I could be doing that's not included in the above? So Francesca, thanks for submitting that question. And it's a little closer to my direct wheelhouse of knowledge, is when it comes to outsourcing and content writing. So it sounds you want to scale and grow. And I don't know the size of your organization. It sounds like maybe, I don't know if you're doing a lot of the direct just copywriting and content writing yourself. It's what it's sounding like if I'm interpreting this correctly. And trying to figure out how do you scale with either growing, right, doing higher volume and lower pricing, or do you ultimately build a team, an outsourced team to support the content writing? So, I mean, you can probably guess what my answer is going to be where this is concerned is if you're wanting to scale and grow and having experience with a lot of outsourced copywriting platforms that are out there, would highly recommend exploring that path. I mean, if you're wanting to scale and grow the business, there's a ton of great content writers. Actually, we just hired one in the Philippines that's working for us, full time, that is going to be doing full content writing, and I mean, incredibly affordable. So if you're looking to scale and grow, if you, obviously Upwork and Fiverr have good ones. WriterAccess.com is a dedicated content writing platform out there that is nothing but content writers. These are former, editors of magazines or newspapers that are now stay-at-home moms and dads. I mean, we got an incredible press release written for like $38 by somebody who was an editor of of a magazine. So you'd be amazed, and I don't know what your experience has been around it, but you can find really great talent out there. And part of it is the type of content that's being written, right? Are you doing super high-touch, in-depth press releases or very high-touch voice articles, right, with the voice of the person is really critical? Because a lot of times, as you know, depending on if the type of content writing, and this is maybe a reposition or pivot of your business as well, is a lot just need to crank out blog content on a regular basis that has certain keyword density. And so maybe it's an opportunity, if you're worried about the quality and all you do is super high-end, very thoughtful type of articles, maybe you reserve some of those and you do elevate your pricing on those. But if you're looking to scale and grow, I know quite a few companies out there that we've worked with that absolutely outsource their content writing. And in the Philippines, particularly, the woman we just brought on, English is their second language. A lot of people don't realize that in the Philippines. If you were to explore there as a channel, the U.S. controlled it up until 1947, so you don't have any really as much of the culture gap there. Very Americanized culture, American education system. Some people you speak with have pure English and hardly any accent. And just a great people, a great culture, a great country. That's where I found my first VA and kind of fell in love and saw that there's an opportunity there to grow, pay people incredibly well, but also offer very affordable rates to people in other countries relative to the strength of our currency. So I would encourage, and if you want to reach out, I'm happy to kind of give you some additional resources there. But if you're looking to grow, if you don't ever delegate and transition, you're always going to hit that ceiling. Right? And you can always elevate your prices and just increase, but there is downward pressure on this one. As you have platforms out there like WriterAccess.com and others that exist, there's going to be downward pressure. So unless you position yourself to go after a certain elite clientele that have a very high need in terms of the voice and content, it'll be challenging at scale to kind of continue to increase pricing. So it may be an opportunity to find certain niches, certain industries. Maybe there's certain industries that you have a lot of knowledge in, you're really good at, and have performed well. Is go deep in those industries and find you 2 or 3 content writers that can be on board. You get a full-time content writer, in some of these countries for $1,200, $1,500 a month, right? So it doesn't take much. The volume you could turn that into in terms of ROI. And then focus on certain industries. But that's always the scaling problem. I think everybody in this organization is all about accelerating, and that's the goal is ultimately transitioning in that direction. And maybe there's 2 different tiers of writing. There's the higher end writing that you do directly still, but look at where is there areas that you can scale and grow that maybe the others aren't taking advantage of. There's a niche I was talking to someone the other day about just doing content writing for products on e-commerce sites. That's a whole niche and category, and there are people you can find on these platforms that specialize in that. And you can just be the person that's selling the work and outsource that piece of it. So happy to, if you want to email, happy to have additional kind of dialogue around it. But that would sort of be the path to explore. And again, too, and I know a lot of people that are in content writing or graphic design, is that you take a lot of pride in the quality of what you're doing. And if you've had some bad experiences and people just don't perform, right? And you're like, yeah, I just need to do it myself because they're not going to deliver the quality that I want. I just encourage everyone to revisit that mentality as well. Because if you, and I can share and talk to Sean about another sort of content I can do and share about best practices purely related to outsourcing and VAs and how to find and, communicate with great talent. Because it definitely exists out there. You just have to kind of revisit the approach and strategy with it to help you scale and grow. I mean, look at myself. I mean, we from scratch over 130 people in a year, and we'll be close to 250 by the end of this year by putting systems and processes and best practices in place that I saw were a shortcoming, with a lot of other operations. So, well, that's the last question that I've got on my list. I know I'm starting off as a mentor, so I think they were easy on me and gave me 5. And I apologize, one kind of outside of my direct wheelhouse, but hopefully being in your shoes as well. And I've actually got a resource that are very knowledgeable in blockchain. Actually can connect you directly to actually Robert Hennebery. Bobby Hennebery, that we've worked with is an expert in that and a great guy and very, very familiar. So if you want to hit me up on that, be happy to give you some additional resources, Edward, on the blockchain side. So that wraps up our session, mentor session here today. But thanks so much for the opportunity. This has been fantastic. I'm happy to give back, and being 40 years old now and had a chance to have a lot of experiences over the last 20 years and growing and building companies, and hopefully can provide some insights and approach that maybe you haven't explored before. And if you want to learn more about our business and what we do, you can go to outsourceaccess.com and check it out. We got a bunch of free education and webinars around this whole outsourcing world, and offer some more insight as we go. So thanks again to Sean and to Rick for helping getting me dialed in. Hopefully everything technically worked out here well, and look forward to my next mentor session. They'll be coming up here soon. Take care, everybody.